Hello, oh hello. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Gill, and today I'm going to be doing a session, the first session of a 3-session course about collage. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make some personalised decorated papers using hopefully some accessible materials and techniques that you can use at home. We will go on to use those papers that you create to make some images. Here's a couple of examples. Here's one I did of a moorland sea, and here's another very simple seascape. Okay, so now we're going to start off by doing some different techniques using paints. Now I have got a range of acrylics here, but if you haven't got acrylics at home, that's fine. You can use poster paint or any children's paint would be fine. As long as it's not watercolors, anything like that won't work for this one. Okay, so what we're going to do, the first little bit we're going to do is very, very simple. We're going to do something called stippling. Okay, so just having an ordinary little brush, and we're going to sort of daub some paint on and actually let it start mixing around actually on the paper. As you can see, you can build up different surfaces, different colour surfaces here quite nicely. I might add a little bit of pink in here. You could do a sheet that was all one colour, depending on whatever you wanted to do for your collage later. I haven't talked to you really about thinking about what you might want to do for your collage actually before you start making your decorated papers. It might be a good idea to maybe have a bit of an idea in your head about what you wanted to create. So if you wanted to do a seascape or a landscape, a flower, whatever it might be, you might want a picture. So you could either work from photographs or put that to one side. You might want to look at the internet, get a pick somebody else's picture you could copy if you like, or look at somebody's painting, so that you're creating sheets in sort of colours and textures that are sort of appropriate for what you want to do. Okay, so that's stippling, which is quite simple. Now the other thing you can do that's really quite another simple technique is splattering. Which I do lots in my classes. Those that you know me know that I like splattering. So the acrylics, what you need to do is you need to make them a little bit runnier, okay? Because if they're too thick, you can't actually splatter with them. They're too thick and gunky. So I've watered this down quite a lot, as you can see. Now just using a brush, what you can do is you can tap that. You can see. Just tapping it with another brush and you get some nice little splatters appearing. I'm getting it all over the place actually, it's going everywhere. Okay, the other thing you can do is you can use the same sort of brush, but you can flick it a little bit. Oops, paint needs to be a bit runnier because it's not moving. Can you see? You can sort of splatter it like that. Put some newspaper down, guys, if you're going to do this, because it's a bit messy. The other thing you can try is getting a palette knife. I'm just going to show you a little palette knife. The more flexible, the better, really. They sell them in all sorts of places. So I'm just going to show you just ping, 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 and you can actually do some nice little splatters. It's quite nice if you build this up using several different colours. All right. So that's two very, very simple techniques to make sort of interesting papers. Right, if we could move on to one other technique now. Hi now, we're going to be looking at another technique. We're going to be dragging the paint around this time. Here's a couple of examples here. Now these two have been done using an old little sort of store card, old credit card that you can use to drag the paint around. You could use a piece of stiff cardboard if you haven't got an old plastic piece of card, or these two have been done, if anyone has got, these are called brayers or printing rollers. If anyone's got anything like this, you can actually do the paint in different directions and you can get some quite nice textures. All right, okay. So I'm going to be using an old bit of credit card here, just to show you, because I think that's a bit, most people might have something like that at home. Okay, so I'm just going to apply the paint to the card. When you put it on quite thickly. Okay, sort of daub the paint on, and then you've got a nice wad of paint there that you can drag around. Okay, so you then firmly put it down, and you can drag this paint around to create interesting colours mixing together. Right, again, I'm going to put quite a lot of paint on this one, daubing it on. And as you can see, you get some quite nice colour mixing on the paper. I might just go over with one more colour. I might just wipe that off and try going on with another colour. Over the top, I'm going to put on some blue, some cyan sort of blue, sort of turquoisey blue over the top. Let's see if that's more exciting, isn't it? That's a bit better. So you get the idea. You can create a really nice, interesting surface by doing that. Right, now we're going to be looking at some different ways of creating papers using some different sort of simple printing techniques. We're going to be using sponging. You can use sequin waste or bubble wrap to print with. You can use corks, or if anyone's got any of these sponge applicators that sort of you can use for children's painting, they make some really interesting sort of nice circles, especially when you sort of spin them around as well. Right, so I'll put those to one side and just show you quite quickly. So sequin waste is obviously a byproduct of making sequins, and you can get it in lots of places where you sort of scrap store type places, which they're really useful. I'm just going to show you this quickly, and I'll also show you something else if you haven't got any of this. So printing through, sort of using the sort of stippling technique. So you want the paint fairly thin on the brush, otherwise you'll end up with a big blob. And it's quite nice if you go over with more than one colour. So I'm going to, while that's not moving it, put another colour over the top, so you sort of should then get multicoloured print, which is quite nice. You can get a similar effect just using a piece of bubble wrap, which most people will have, so keep your package in. I'm going to just apply the paint straight onto the bubble wrap and then press it down. Don't have too big a piece of bubble wrap for this, otherwise you'll get in a bit of a mess. I would keep it sort of manageable size. Right, I've just got a small piece here, and then I'm going to put that on and press down. And you should get a similar sort of print as you would with the sequin waste. There you go. All right, which is quite nice. I quite like the texture on that. Actually, it's quite nice. And again, you could dry that and go over with another colour if you want to, and sort of slightly move it. Could be really quite interesting. That's one thing. The other thing you can do is sponging. Now, everyone has got sort of scouring type sponges, I think, probably under the sink. So what you can do, you can keep your old ones actually. The spongy side, the side you normally hold, if you just pull out some pieces, so you're making a sort of textured surface, what you can then do is, again, grab some paint, put that straight over the top of your sponge, and you can print quite a nice texture again. Again, you can do that with more than one colour if you want to. We'll go in again and put a little bit of yellow on top, so I'm getting some orangey bits coming through. There we go. So that's that. Right, and you should be able to just press that down and you'll get quite a nice texture again, which is quite nice. The other thing you can use, if you want to, you can use the rough side as well, and you'll just get a much finer texture with that. I'm just very slightly watering the paint down because it's quite hard to paint over this textured surface because it's so rough. Don't water it down too much, you'll end up with a big blob. Right, so a couple of colours on there. There we are. And then I'm going to again just press that down, and we should get a texture, but you get a much finer texture, which is quite nice, as you can see. Okay. Okay, so one other technique that's actually one of my favourites, because you get some lovely results, is stippling or using sort of stencil type things. So one of the things that I've got here is stippling through paper doilies, which work really well. There's another example there. Or you could try lace, if you've got any lace and that sort of thing at home. Or you could even try, if you wanted to, actually cutting out your own little stencils. You could cut out a little shape in a piece of paper or card and stipple through it to make a pattern. Right, so I'm just going to show you using a paper doily. So again, we'll just place the doily actually over the paper where you want to make your marks and then stipple through it. Okay, so keeping the paint fairly sort of thickish. You don't want it too runny, otherwise it will splurge underneath and make spoil your pattern design. Okay, so I'm just building that up. It's quite nice again if you actually use more than one colour, I think. Oops. So lift that up and you see you start building up a nice sort of pattern, and you can carry on and just build that up. Just going to show you one other, because obviously you get doilies in different shapes and sizes, so you can actually build that up. And actually another one here that's a slightly obviously bigger pattern. I'll just do a little bit here to show you. So my brush is quite dry. Oopsie daisy, stuck. There you go. So you can see you get slightly different patterns by using different shapes, holes, all right, in the different doilies. The other thing you could do, I'm not going to actually show you this, but could look around your house and just see what else you can find really to make marks with. So you could actually, if you wanted to, paint on corks and sort of do printing with corks. Different shapes and size bottle tops could make some quite nice marks if you sort of print over and over again. Obviously simple things like cotton buds, that sort of thing, you could do sort of designs and printing with as well. Okay, and now we're going to move on to using some more sort of watercolor type paints. Right, now we are going to move on to more sort of watercolor type paints. Now I'm going to be demonstrating using something called Analinki, which we use in lots of our classes actually. You can these are sort of dye-based watercolors. You can use ordinary watercolors if you've got them. You could use inks, watered down a little bit. You could use food coloring. You could even try making your own paints really with things like beetroot juice or something if you wanted to have a little go at something like this and have a play around. Of just really what we're going to be doing is this is wet in wet, letting one colour run into another while they're still wet and merge and make some nice sort of drippy sort of patterns. Okay, so I've got myself a piece of paper. Right, now I'm going to be using these paints quite strongly, but I'm going to wet them in a minute and let the paint run around. So I'm scratching that around. Let one colour merge slightly into another in a minute. I'm wetting the paper a little bit. If you wet the paper, that will encourage it to run around a bit more. Oh, that's nice. Can you see it running there? That's lovely. And what you can then start doing if you want to is actually things like this. You can actually sort of start putting bits of paint on and letting them run. What I like to do, I always like to let the paper, I like to sort of let it run around a bit, so encourage it to move about. Encourage it to move around. Oh, look at that. Lovely. Can you see that moving? Beautiful. Just have a bit of fun with it, really. It's not the end of the world if one colour merges to another and you're not quite keen. That'll be fine. You can always go over with something else afterwards. Lovely. What should I put in there? A little bit more yellow. You could always try a little bit more colour in there, just to make those a little bit stronger. Encourage it to run a bit. So where the paper's wet, that will run. You'll start to flow and get these nice little marks appearing. Lovely. There we go. Just going to go in with a slightly darker colour in a couple of places, just to beef that up a little bit. Make it a bit more exciting. Ooh, that's it. And you can always dab it with a tissue if you get little puddles and things like I'm doing here. Just lift it off a little bit. There, so you've got a little bit of control over. Okay, there we are. So, okay, and now we're going to move on to doing some wax resist type techniques. Now, the marks that you can see here are done using an oil pastel. You can get these quite easily, sets of oil pastels in lots of different colours. If you haven't got any oil pastels, you could try children's wax crayons. You could even try breaking up a little piece of ordinary household candle and making some marks and then doing washes over. Because the paints are watery, they just basically run off where the wax has gone to create a wax resist. Okay. So I'm making some different sort of marks using the oil pastels. This one you won't be able to see, but it's going to be, these are white marks, so you're not going to be able to see those until you actually paint over the top. So I'm just doing another colour down here. You could even try, if you wanted to, sort of slightly like rubbing techniques, where you very lightly rub an oil pastel over your paper with a textured surface underneath. That might be quite nice. There, that will do, just to give you an idea. Right, so what I'm now going to do is get some contrasting colours to paint over the top. So, I am going to be using, I've got pink, so I will go over with, I think I will go over with some nice bright orange. Okay, zingy. You'll see obviously the wax pastels just show through and it makes it much more zingy. Obviously you can do wet in wet techniques with this if you wanted to and let the paint just run around just like we were just doing. It's entirely up to you. It's quite nice. Right, I'm now to start going on with a slightly darker colour. I'm going to get some purple. I'm going to go over, I've got some white marks up here, so I'm going over with a nice dark colour so that you can see them. And you see obviously the marks pop through once you start painting over them. And I go over with another colour there. Mixing some blues in that to make it a bit more interesting. I'm just going to get another colour. I think we'll get some nice bright red to go over here, just so that will show up a bit more. There, you get the idea. You can get different sorts of textures and marks appearing. Okay, so I'm going to show you later on. You can work over any of the sheets we're creating again if you want to make them a bit more interesting, but I'll show you that in a little while. Okay, I'm now going to show you some using the watercolor technique, but applying some bleach over the top. Okay, I have actually got some bleach 50-50 dilution in a little spray bottle, but you can also apply it using a piece of card, a brush, a cotton bud, all sorts of things. All right, so I will just quickly show you that. I'm going to do some wet in wet techniques on this piece of paper, and then I'm going to apply some bleach. So I'm actually using black here, which I never normally use, but it shows up the bleach quite nicely. So we just paint some of this on. I'm going to also get some lovely dark blue. Put that on there. And I might get a little bit of purple too. There we go. So, as you can see, this is quite wet. So what I'm going to do now is just show you, if you apply the bleach while the paint is wet, obviously it's going to sort of run. So I'm taking out, I'm doing this and actually just taking it and using the little nozzle and actually just going to drop a little bit on. Can you see how that's sort of spreading and running because the paint's all wet? Okay, so if I was to spray that very lightly, you can see that will continue. You can see it's working, but it will continue to run. Particularly if you hold the paper up a little bit, basically you're going to get the paint running, the bleach running and sort of drizzling, and you're going to get some sort of cloudy effects. And what I've done earlier, which I could show you what they look like when you do that technique. So here's a few that have done previously, and you can see that you get these big billowy sort of shapes appearing, which could be really quite lovely actually. Okay, so if you apply the bleach while it's dry, you get a completely different type of a mark. So this one, obviously the paint is dry first, and this was applied using just a piece of card. Okay, so a simple piece of card, and I'm going to dip it in bleach, and you can sort of go like this and actually drag and mark that. I'm going to show you this in a moment. This one was done actually using the bleach and sort of dragging it along like that. This one was applying a little bit onto a brush and sort of drizzling it around and splattering it a little bit, which is quite nice. I quite like that one. This one is actually using the bleach on dry paint, using a piece of card like this. When it was all dry, then applying another colour into the bleached areas, which is quite nice. Okay, so you've got a bit of a variety there. I'm just going to show you, this is obviously paint all completely dry, just spraying it again with the mix with the bleach, and you can see quite nice that you get much more sort of small, delicate little splatters once the paint's dry, which is quite nice, I think, actually. I've also got another one here that's dry, and you can apply the bleach. Just got some bleach again diluted in here a little bit in the jar here, and you can just make marks using a card. Dragging it is rather nice. You could also use a cotton bud, anything really that you can. Just give it a moment. Gradually it takes the colour away. You can get some quite nice effects. So you can also use a brush to do some sort of more sort of delicate little marks. You can actually do more of a pattern if you wanted to, as you can see. Okay, so that's using the bleach, which again gives you quite a nice surface. Right, finally, what we can do, if you have got any sheets you've created and you're not very happy with them, you think, oh, they're a bit dull and boring, what you can do is you can rework them with any of the techniques that we've looked at. So this one was using the doily, printing with acrylics, but then washes of the analinky over the top to make it much more exciting. This one is similar. This is printed with the doily, but then sponging over the top. This one here is actually using a cork to print with and then hand painting around, then a wash of the analinky over the top. This one is a mixture of a couple of techniques. So this one's got some wax resist on it, washes over the top, but then over that is then using bleach. So it's got bleach dragging with a card, but also with a cotton bud to sort of make it a bit more of an exciting surface. Now I'll just show you that on this one. So this one obviously is printed with using the doily. What we can then do is we can then brighten that up a little bit by applying another colour over the top. So I'll go over the nice zingy yellow, And I might go over with some orange as well, actually. Just obviously you need to make sure the paint's dry before you do this, or otherwise you have a horrible mess. So I might actually, orange might be a bit more zingy. There we are. Just to brighten that up a little bit, you can actually add a bit more excitement. And then I say you could go over this if you wanted to further. You could add marks with oil pastels before you put this or after, and you could even, I say, go and use bleach again over the top as well if you wanted to, just to give you an interesting result there. So that's a bit more exciting than it was previously. Okay. Right guys, that's it for today. Hopefully that's given you lots of things that you can go away and explore and experiment with, and I hope you have lots of fun. Go and look in your cupboard, see what you can find, and next time I'm going to show you how to create a simple landscape using the lovely papers that you're going to make, or if you prefer, you could make a lovely seascape. Okay, later on you'll just see some pictures coming up of some students' work using these techniques. Go and have some fun. Bye.